Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Falcons Central Radio Show on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am Aaron Freeman of FalcFans.com, joined as always by my good friend Scott Karasik, writer for Bleacher Report. This week we are joined by a guest, a special guest, a person who's been on this show a couple of times before, but we haven't had him in a while. But he popped back up into Falcons news. He's writing for Black Sports Online, breaking the story, breaking the story about Bruce Irvin's homecoming, and that broke Falcons Twitter for about a day. We are speaking, of course, of Sammy Logan. Welcome back, Sammy.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, we got Sammy on his cell phone, so we apologize in advance if that creates any issues. But people can follow Sammy on Twitter at Sammy_socialite. We've had him before talking a little bit about Valdosta State and talking a little bit before about how awesome Ryan Schrader is, and Shantavius Jones, who now unfortunately plays for the Saints. But I'm sure we'll apologize to Valdosta State for producing a Saints player, but it is what it is.
Two Saints players.
All right, guys. We didn't have a show last week, so we got to catch up on some Falcons news. A big run of our show this week will be catching up on a lot of stories and headlines involving the Falcons over the last 2 weeks, and then of course, as usual, we'll get to your mailbag questions in the end. There are two roster moves that the Falcons made over the past week since we did a show. I think the first one happened either the day we did our last show or whatever, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. That was the Falcons signing fullback Colin Mooney, and this past week they signed offensive tackle Tyler Columbus. Scott, let's start with Colin Mooney, and what are your thoughts on his being brought to the Falcons roster and whether or not he's going to potentially challenge for a starting spot with Patrick DeMarco, or is he more of a backup camp bodies type of guy?
I mean, I think he's going to be a legitimate starting competitor. I think he's a better all-around player than DeMarco is. I've already seen him. I went back and watched whatever I could, and he's a solid blocker. He's a really good receiver out of the backfield, but he rarely gets targeted. So I'd love to see him with more targets because small sample size, and you can't really tell much from that. Also, the Titans kind of go with an H-back as opposed to a true fullback, so it made it a little bit tougher there too because he wasn't seeing many snaps as a true fullback for them.
Okay. So if you had to put money on it now, would you say who's the starting fullback for the Falcons week one? Is it DeMarco or is it Colin Mooney?
I mean, I'd say it's 70% chance of DeMarco, 30% chance of Mooney, and then they might randomly sign somebody, but we have no idea what's going to happen there. Say someone gets cut late in the process. Who's that Justin Griffith type fullback? I think that could be someone who ends up coming in.
Sammy, I know fullback isn't the most glorious position, but do you have any thoughts? Did you weigh in on what do you think between DeMarco and Mooney?
Well, all I have to do is just watch what happens in the offseason. Patrick DeMarco has some things to work on, as obviously, but he does block well, and we'll need a lot of blocking since we'll be running the ball, hopefully, this year.
Yep, hopefully. Certainly should be a lot more than we've seen the last couple of years. I think, you probably couldn't statistically run the ball less than we've had the last couple of years. But, yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting between the two guys. I think there's a legitimate chance that Mooney could, win that job. And it'll basically boil down, as it has last couple of summers, to who has the best training camp. and the best man will win. Right now, I'd probably give the slight edge to DeMarco only because he's a known commodity, particularly on special teams. But certainly Mooney did play well as a blocker with the Titans 2 years ago, so that certainly weighs into his favor. So let's talk about the move that we made last week. Not another sexy move. They signed Tyler Columbus, a guy that has experience playing for Kyle Shanahan in Washington, and a guy that played for the Seahawks when Dan Quinn was a defensive line coach there a couple of years ago. I think Columbus's claim to fame is he threw the last block on the famous beast mode run that the Seahawks had in the playoffs against the Saints. That sort of, I think Marshawn Lynch was probably going to score a touchdown anyway, but it helped. So I guess Columbus has spent the last couple of years playing right tackle, but he has some experience pretty much playing all four offensive line positions besides center over his NFL career. Is he being signed as a backup, or is he legit to continue to start at some spot, whether that's left guard or right tackle? Scott, what do you think?
He's not very good.
Thank you for being honest.
I'm just gonna give it out, put that out there. He is probably a camp body, if you want the honest to God's truth. Yeah, he started at right tackle under Shanahan. Yeah, he looked okay. He looked good in 2013 if you're going by Pro Football Focus, but the eye test said, hell no. If you go by just any sort of watching him, he is overmatched pretty much no matter where you put him. He doesn't play with very good leverage. He reaches too much. He doesn't play with much strength. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's like a quicker Sam Baker. So, and the Falcons probably signed him for a veteran minimum. So, if it's between Tyler Columbus and Sam Baker for that final roster spot, I think we all know who's going to keep that final roster spot. Probably Tyler Columbus.
Sammy, what are your thoughts?
$4.5 million, you do it.
I definitely see him as a camp body. We had a few injuries to offensive line last year in the off season, so we want to make sure that our real guys don't take too much damage. I believe that Ryan Schrader is a good choice for this spot. He had a lot of work at Valdosta State blocking for running backs, and had two running backs that ran over 1,000 yards in the same season. So I feel like Schrader would definitely be a nice fit in Kyle Shanahan's role right there, as opposed to trying to let Columbus start.
Well, the blocking scheme that Shanahan runs is very similar to what they ran at Valdosta State, too. I realize that means I went back and watched Valdosta State film, but I'm that kind of guy.
They got a couple of players, so who's with your winning?
I mean, Schrader's a really good football player. He just got a very late start on the game. And Mike Tice helped him make a lot of strides last year. And I think Chris Morgan's the kind of guy who may not be a big name now for offensive line, but everyone I've talked to says he's the next guy coming up. He's the next Tom Cable for offensive line coaches. So that's really high praise when you hear that when you hear guys talk about someone like that. I mean, yeah, there's scouts that have worked with him, but still, that's huge praise to hear about a guy. And I think that he can be. I think if he's the next Tom Cable, Ryan Schrader will be the next Tyson Clabo. I'll bet a skinny, more athletic version, but still the next Tyson Clabo.
I go with that. I've been a fan of Schrader since I did see a little bit of him at Valdosta State a couple of years ago, and I liked what I saw for considering he was a guy that didn't have a lot of experience, as Scott just said. And you look at Schrader, he's not a road grader sort of type of player, but he plays with attitude and mean streak, and that's basically what Clabo was. Clabo was a pretty big guy, but he wasn't like a power run blocker. He was just a guy that just, he could control you once he got his hands on you, and he would put you in the dirt. And I do agree with Scott that I think Schrader has that potential. And it was a little curious to me that the Falcons looked at Columbus and Joe Barksdale over the last 2 weeks. Barksdale ended up signing with the Chargers earlier on Monday. But, it seemed a little curious to me because both of those guys have primarily been right tackles, have played other positions in their careers, but have been primarily right tackles. And it seemed that Ryan Schrader, it was kind of a shot across the bow of Ryan Schrader, and it didn't seem like it was warranted to me. And it clearly sounds like we're all three of us are in agreement that we think Schrader's poised to have a pretty good year. So that just seemed a little odd to me.
I think it was more for depth, because I don't know if they see Lamar Holmes as a tackle in this new scheme. He's not really quick enough for tackle.
Right.
I think if you move him inside to right guard, left guard, if you move him to right guard because he's better on his right side, and John Asamoah wants to play left guard, and that ends up working out that way, I'm cool with that. Whatever works. If Lamar Holmes looks like John Asamoah did last year at right guard, and Asamoah looks like he did last year only playing left guard, I'd be perfectly happy with two John Asamoahs in the friggin' offensive line. Two guys who can pass block well and then understand how to just get in the way and create some holes.
It'll be interesting because we can be fairly confident the Falcons will wind up starting their best 5 offensive linemen. And I think we can all agree who their top 4 guys are: Jake Matthews, Joe Hawley, John Asamoah, and Ryan Schrader. It's just really going to be a question through competition this summer who that 5th guy will be. And you could probably, make an argument that anybody that, you could just throw all of those guys' names in a hat and pick one, and there's a decent chance that they could, merge. But, that's the value of competition. Whoever, basically you look at 2008 when Harvey Dahl basically, quote unquote, stole the job from Keenan Forney, who had been the starting right guard for like 4 years prior to that. It was basically because he went out and out-competed him for the job. And, that worked out pretty well for the Falcons, so you kind of hope that the same thing happens this summer with that, whoever ends up starting that 5th spot, whether that's the left guard or whatever the case may be. But, I don't know if that's going to be Sam Baker, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Sam Baker. I think there's a very realistic shot that Sam Baker gets cut pretty early on in camp when they realize that, he's not close to quick enough for this scheme. And I think there's also a very good shot that Harlan Gunn could win that job at left guard. Because after he's lost a lot of the weight that he had, he's gotten a lot quicker. Because he was massive 2 years ago. He was like 330 2 years ago. And he's gotten down to about 305.
Yeah, I noticed that about Gunn. You look at his sort of pro day numbers from a couple of years ago when he came out of Miami. They're not very impressive, but I think a lot of that had to do with him bulking up because he was thinking that he needed to bulk up in order to play guard in the NFL. But in this scheme, being light shows that his athleticism will stand out. So I do think Gunn is a good starting job this summer. All right, guys, moving on. The next roster move that was almost made was the Falcons put in a waiver claim among 8 other teams for safety DJ Swearinger. What do you guys think that move sort of signals? Was it the Falcons just looking for someone that can bring a little bit of swagger to the back end of the defense, or do you think there was an indicator that he could be a possible starter for the team, given some of the confusion over who will be the starter at free safety across from William Moore?
I think it was the guy's a former second-round pick. You can get a former second-round pick still on his rookie contract you at least take a shot at it. At least bring him into camp and let him have some competition. I mean, you're not guaranteeing him anything by putting a waiver claim on him. You're not the Bucks who have the worst safeties in the NFL. Starting Chris Conti and Brad McDougald and Major Wright and Keith Tandy. I mean, DJ Swearinger's going to start there, guaranteed. He's better than any of those guys I listed. He might be the best safety that Lovie Smith has voluntarily brought into the mix since he started as a head coach. But no, I mean, like, he'd be William Moore Part 2. If you bring in DJ Swearinger, you're basically saying, hey, we're running a lot more cover 2 than what anything Dan Quinn has run before.
Yeah.
I hate that the Falcons weren't able to get him. It was nice to see them actually put in a waiver claim for him, though, because the safety position has been something that people who actually pay attention to the Falcons have been wondering what we're going to do about all offseason. And DJ is definitely would have been an upgrade in any way that we can use him. But, we can't carve a spilled milk and just have to make do with the safeties that we have.
He would have been the most athletic safety in the roster. Put it that way. Outside of William Moore.
Definitely.
But that's because William Moore's a freak athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that Swearinger is playing for the Bucks because he can't cover. And, the less guys that can cover the middle of the defense when we play them twice a year, the better. So, I'm not looking – I feel sorry for whatever Falcons receiver is going to go over the middle if he's going to be out there headhunting, which he is probably going to do. But, I guess we'll take the 15 yards in the concussion. I don't know.
Poor Justin
I'd rather just have the 15.
I would have loved to see him come in and move to linebacker or like a linebacker safety role for the Falcons. Gain 15 pounds, be about 225, 230, and play that kind of role because I feel like that's more his strength. Playing in that underneath box, killing people over the middle, just destroying them. And, yeah, I feel like that would have been his best fit. Going man-to-man against tight ends, I feel like he could do that. He wasn't asked to do that much in the pros, but in college he could do it pretty well. So I feel like that would have been DJ Swearinger's real fit in the defense.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment that Swearinger is a Buck is that he's not going to be playing for the Texans, and so he won't be playing the Titans twice. So he won't be punking Harry Douglas twice this year, who's playing for the Titans, like he tried to do last summer on Hard Knocks. But
yeah, he'll just punk him once this year.
What?
He'll just punk him once this year.
Yeah, I guess one time. All right, let's get to our next subject, and this is where we can really get Sammy to lay down the law for us. He sort of broke this story with Bruce Irvin. He I don't know what you would call it, Sammy. You basically found Bruce Irvin at a Hawks game, and you asked him a couple of questions, so I guess you can fill in everybody who hasn't heard about this, what went down.
Right, okay. So, like you said, I saw Bruce Irvin at the Hawks game last Wednesday, Game 5 against the Wizards, and he was decked out in full Hawks gear, and so it made me want to go talk to him. I'm like, look at what Mr. Irvin's doing. So talked to him at the end of the game, and I asked him where did he want to be when his contract was up. And he pretty much said Atlanta is where he wanted to be. And I asked him, was money a factor? And he said, no, he would be in Atlanta, believe that. And that was it. He was excited to say it. I mean, I know as a player, you have a lot of tactics that you might try to employ with your agent to get people to up the price on you or something like that. But it just really seemed like he planned on finishing up the season in Seattle and checking out Atlanta during free agency in the upcoming year. Now, Mr. Pete Carroll and the Seahawks organization decided that they wanted to do damage control, and I found it hilarious that Pete Carroll decided to tell the world what questions I asked Bruce Irvin at a Hawks game that he wasn't even at. It was hilarious to me, actually.
So what do you think of Pete basically saying that? I guess he was misquoted or something. I can't even remember what exactly how Pete Carroll put it, but basically like something about wanting to come home or everybody wants to come home or something like that.
Right. It was kind of crazy to me because Pete Carroll in his interview said that I asked Bruce Irvin, how would he like to come home, and that wasn't even anything that I asked, and it just caught me off guard because I'm just a reporter and he's a head coach, so all the mainstream media jumped to his side to say maybe I was misquoting Irvin, but that wasn't true at all, and I really kind of sad because I feel like I got a really good scoop, and the Atlanta media has been on my side the whole time because I feel like they know the real situation. They know that Irvin has publicly stated that he would want out of Seattle, especially after they didn't pick up his option. And hey, it is what it is.
No. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Bruce Irvin coming to Atlanta. As Sammy said, Seahawks didn't pick up his fifth-year option. That means that after this season, Bruce Irvin will be an unrestricted free agent, free to sign with anybody he so chooses. Obviously, he is a Atlanta native. Obviously, he wants to come home to Atlanta. So I guess now we discuss whether or not the Falcons, will the feelings be mutual on the Falcons side? Do you guys think that the Falcons will jump at the opportunity to get another pass rusher like Bruce Irvin?
I don't see why not.
I honestly think at the right price, the Falcons will jump at it. Dan Quinn liked Irving when he was coaching him at Seattle, and we definitely, regardless of how much we upgraded our pass rush this offseason, there's still no limit to how great we could be after being as horrible as we have been. So anybody who still has a high motor and who could play would be helpful to us.
Okay.
And honestly, paying him $20 million a year wouldn't, or not a year, $20 million total, 4 years, $20 million, probably wouldn't be that bad of a deal. Despite what Aaron might say, I don't think that'd be too bad of a deal. Especially since the Falcons are going to be paying Vic Beasley on a rookie contract as opposed to what he's going to be worth, which I think is going to be a lot more, because I'm expecting a lot of pass rush. I'm expecting 10-plus sacks out of Vic and a whole bunch of production in terms of pressure out of Vic real early on. He's a better pass rusher than Irvin is. Now you put Bruce Irvin in that rotation instead of Prince Shembo or Troy Bierman or O'Brien Schofield, and how much better does that rotation look?
Anything looks better than a rotation with Corey Bierman.
I mean, I don't mind Corey Bierman as the third or the fourth or even the fifth guy in the rotation. The fourth or the fifth guy playing 150, 200 snaps a year out of 1,000 to 1,100 snaps, that's okay. That's not that bad. But when he's the guy who's playing 1,000 snaps out of 1,100 snaps, and you're not putting Mapanga or Massaquoi or anybody who's actually playing with confidence out there, it's not worth it, You wonder why Mike Nolan and Mike Smith got fired. That's a big reason why.
Well, I hate to be the guy that bursts the bubble, but that's what I do. I do think what Sammy said, it's really going to come down to price. I think, as Scott also said, I do think the biggest deterrent for why Irvin may not be a Falcon next year is Vic Beasley. I think the ideal role that Irvin has basically filled in Seattle and where he's excelled the last 2 years has been as a two-down linebacker and a third-down defensive end. And I think that's really the role that the Falcons are kind of grooming Vic Beasley to be. And I think I just don't think there's going to be room for both of those guys on the roster. It's certainly not if you're going to be paying Irvin premium dollars when he's basically he's a poor man's Vic Beasley. So to me, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to pay Irvin a bunch of money to be a lesser version of a player we already have. So I think it really will just basically, if Bruce Irvin comes, and I wrote this on my takeaways column earlier this week on FalcFans.com, but you can, if he basically is the Nick Fairley of next offseason and takes like a 1-year, $5 million deal, and that's basically what the Seahawks gave Michael Bennett 2 years ago, I think that move makes a lot of sense for the Falcons. But if he wants like a 5-year, $25, $30 million contract, which he might get, from somebody else, I don't see the Falcons being in the market for that. If they're going to spend that sort of money, I think they're going to end up going after someone who can be that sort of left defensive end, full-time sort of every down player. But we'll see what happens. I wouldn't complain about if Bruce Irvin joins the team. Obviously, I'm in favor of more athletes and more pass rushers, so it's not a bad thing. Personally, I don't expect the team to be jumping for joy to get Bruce Irvin unless it's for the right price.
I mean, it depends on what you consider that right price.
Yeah.
Now, say he takes that hometown discount and signs the same kind of deal that, I don't know, Justin Durant signed. That 3-year, essentially $10 million deal.
Yeah, that's good. I just don't see them committing sort of the double-digit guaranteed money that you typically see in a long-term contract to Bruce Irvin. Just because I think, he's filling the same spot that Vic Beasley has, and you already are basically guaranteeing Vic Beasley, $14 million over the next 4, potentially 5 years.
But what if he's not? What if he's filling that spot that Corey Bierman's occupying right now, that third guy in the rotation, that backup at strong side linebacker and Leo in right now?
I mean, yeah, I guess it's possible that he could be doing that, but I don't see the Falcons making a firm commitment one way. I just don't think they're gonna make a big roster move that's a commitment one way or the other to basically determine where Beasley's future is. I think they're gonna leave that door open and sort of fit it in when it is. Okay, Sammy, you got any last thoughts on Bruce Irvin being a Falcon, or do you want to move on to some other topics?
Last thought on that. I hope we're able to get Bruce Irvin if he's available for the right price. There might be other free agents out there that could do better. We'll just have to find out.
All right. So we heard news earlier this week that the Falcons, quote unquote, talked about moving Robert Alford to safety. What are you guys' thoughts? Does that move make sense to you, or do you think Alford's going to stay at cornerback and have a big year there?
So the article that I'm working on right now basically goes over the athletic prototypes that Dan Quinn wants in his players at each position. And Robert Alford just doesn't fit at free safety. He doesn't make sense at free safety. He makes perfect sense at cornerback. He makes perfect sense at starting cornerback. At right cornerback, or even as a nickel, Alford makes perfect sense in the defense. He may not be 6 foot tall, but neither was Walter Thurman, neither was Byron Maxwell. All right, those guys were 5'11", or 5'10". What they did have was 32-inch arms or longer. Robert Alford has 32-inch arms. So he's long, even though he's not super tall. He also plays very aggressively. He plays like someone pissed in his Cheerios in the morning. And that's what you want. You want a guy who's going to play angry, who's going to play pissed off. Especially a cornerback who says, you threw the damn ball my way, let me go knock that shit out. Because that's what you want out of your cornerback. You want a guy who's going to knock the ball away, or at least make an attempt to knock the ball away, and understands how to track the ball. And I think Robert Alford can do that. The rest of it is technique. And when it comes to that, you couldn't have a better coach than Raheem Morris as a defensive backs coach. You really couldn't.
Well, I definitely am a Robert Alford supporter. Have been ever since he got drafted. I don't think he will be a good safety. But with the right coaching, as Scott said, he can become a better cornerback. He's only been in the league 2 years, guys, man. A lot of people give him flack because he has a lot of penalties. But that all goes back to coaching. If Raheem Morris can coach that out of him and coach him how to actually cover the correct way, Robert Alford has the speed. He like Scott said, he has the arm length. He can definitely be the other starting cornerback for the Falcons. He just needs a little coaching help because he's definitely aggressive. He's not afraid to make a play on the ball. He's a good guy. He just got a bad rep because it was easy for him to hold because they always would pass on his side.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm all in on Alford being a cornerback. I think he'll benefit a lot from this year. Scott talked about his long arms. That matters because, obviously, if you're playing a press screen, you're better at reaching out and touching somebody the longer your arms are. Also, it means that you basically have a much larger radius of which you can defend passes. So you don't necessarily need to be 6'1" or 6'2" because you basically have the arm length of a 6'1" or 6'2" sort of corner. I think Alford is due for a big year. I think he's one of a handful of players on the Falcons defense last year that I would certainly say was talented, that just didn't play up to his ability. I thought through the first month of the season he was probably second only to Desmond Trufant in terms of overall defensive performance. He didn't sort of carry that over. But I think Alford, the player he reminds me a lot of, and I know this will probably be taken negatively, but he reminds me a lot of Dante Robinson, but more the Dante Robinson that played for the Texans that, we ended up paying, $60 million to because we thought he was really, really good. And I think that Dante Robinson, the way the Texans used him, he was a press man corner, he was a shadow corner, and he would basically, and that's how he won. And then, of course, Dante Robinson came to Atlanta, and he basically played off zone and never pressed and stayed on the right side of the field. But I think Alford has that sort of potential. Like Robinson, he's not a guy that's, technically sound, but he's basically a top athlete that wins with athleticism. We saw last year when he faced a more athletic wide receiver like Odell Beckham, that got him into problems. But, there aren't that many Odell Beckhams in the NFL. So I think it's a situation where Alford can, he just needs to clean up his game a little bit. He just needs to stick the details a little bit better, and he'll be good. With a player like Robinson, when he got to Atlanta, it was one of those things where it's like, why is your technique, why is your footwork as sloppy as it is when you're like 7 years into your NFL career? These are the things that should have been cleaned up, in your first 3 or 4 years. And I think Alford has that opportunity to do so. So I think I can cut him a lot more slack than I cut Robinson, based off of his youth and experience.
I have to agree there. I mean, I was thinking more D'Angelo Hall when D'Angelo Hall was good in Atlanta.
God, we are on the same page.
Well, because when D'Angelo Hall was good in Atlanta, he was damn good. He held
favorite cornerback. Dion to me. I love D'Angelo Hall. I love him. In Atlanta. In Atlanta.
Outside of the attitude off the field was got him kicked out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
He grew up though. So Washington has
I like
a
D-Hall too. So. Okay, let's move on. We've got 6 out of the 7 rookies under contract. I guess the question is, the one guy who hasn't signed is Vic Beasley, and I guess Scott, maybe you could weigh in on this. Why do you think Beasley hasn't signed? Is it because of the sort of offset language that always seems to hold up first-round pick contracts every year?
That's probably what it is. I mean, I'm not too worried. He's going to be signed by the time training camp rolls around. Normally, the Falcons don't sign everybody until like a couple days into June anyway. So normally the Falcons don't even sign anybody this early. They wait until June to sign everybody. So the fact that they've got 6 of their 7 is kind of abnormal.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I looked it up and I saw that last year's number 8 overall pick, Justin Gilbert, didn't sign until like the week before training camp. And from what I understood, it's all because of offset language, which for people that don't know what that means, it's basically teams write into, particularly with first-round picks contracts, basically want to write into how much money they are on the hook to pay a guy if they end up cutting him. Basically, teams don't want to be on the hook to pay them any money or whatever, and it's it's a big deal for players, and so it's one of those things where when you see, even though there's a slotting system with the rookie contracts nowadays, the one hang up that you have with first round picks, because their contracts tend to be mostly or all guaranteed money. It's how much that offset language is. So if this thing lingers a little bit longer, we'll probably see that will probably be the reason if say Beasley's not signed within the next 3 or 4 weeks.
The best way to compare offset language is like Major League Baseball. If a guy gets cut in Major League Baseball, the team that signed him is on the hook for the contract minus whatever the next team pays him. So the Braves are on the hook for Dan Uggla's like $25 million that they owe him, minus like the $1 million that the Nationals are paying him. So he's guaranteed to get that much money minus whatever the Nationals are paying. Braves are only on the hook for whatever the Nationals aren't paying on that contract. So it's that kind of same thing with Vic Beasley. If the Falcons did wind up cutting him, the next team would only be on the hook for, say, a minimum contract, and then the Falcons would have to pay the difference.
Okay. Sammy, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. This is this is not a big deal, but I'm just curious what you guys think about it. Vic Beasley is wearing number 44. What are your thoughts on a pass rusher wearing number 44?
It's such an ACC thing to do. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay.
I kind of like it. I look at it as he thinks he's a linebacker, or they've got him listed as a linebacker. They probably have him listed as linebacker because he said, you know what, I want to wear number 44. I think that'll look good. And because linebackers were given numbers in the 40s, yeah, it is going to take a little bit of time to get these guys, or for people to get used to linebackers in the 40s. But once they do, 44 and 55 are going to be very common numbers for a lot of linebackers.
Yeah, I haven't wrapped my head around it. We'll see where I don't know if I'm going to rush out and get my Beasley jersey just yet with that number 44. I feel like I want to wait and see how training camp battle goes. But it does sound like it's a permanent switch. But I don't know. I just feel like I need to see it week 1 before I rush out and buy a Vic Beasley jersey. It's just a little weird for me.
Maybe that's his goal for sacks for his first season.
44 sacks.
Yeah.
He's gonna break.
First 4 years, right?
First 2 seasons.
Okay.
Well, if he wants that, then I'm pretty sure a lot of Atlanta fans will be happy.
I guarantee you, every NFL pass rusher, their goal is to have 44 sacks over a 2-year period. Because if you do that, you're pretty much the second best or the best pass rusher in the league. There's maybe one guy who's better than you in that case in the entire league, and you're putting up 22 sacks every year. And his name's
Yeah.
probably JJ.
Yeah, JJ. I don't know, guys. So we heard a little bit today about the possibility of Atlanta getting a Super Bowl in 2019, and that's supposed to get announced pretty soon. Yeah, so I'm just looking at Twitter and seeing an update. But so what are your thoughts on the Falcons, getting a Super Bowl in 2019 or maybe a year or two later in that new stadium?
Go for it. Hell yeah, bring a Super Bowl back to Atlanta. It'd be what, the first one in 20 years?
Yeah.
I feel old thinking about how that would be the first Super Bowl in Atlanta in 20 years. Or how the Super Bowl, or how like it was 20 years ago this year that the Braves won the World Series.
Wow.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it would be great for us to get the Super Bowl whenever we get it. We're spending billions of dollars on this new stadium, and we gotta have events there. Why not have a Super Bowl, college football championship game, Final Four? We need all that stuff in there. Like the Super Bowl is definitely needed to be in Atlanta, and hopefully Matt Ryan has what it takes to make it to the Super Bowl at least one time before then, so he can play in his second Super Bowl in Atlanta.
Okay. Okay. I like that confidence, Sammy. I like that. So I guess my next question is, if Atlanta, I shouldn't say the Falcons, Atlanta gets a Super Bowl in 2019, you guys going to start saving up to go to that game? Because tickets aren't cheap. I can guarantee you that.
Ticket? I'll be in the
I'm
press.
hoping I just have a press pass.
Exactly. That would be a lovely game.
I mean, then we don't have to pay for a ticket. We just get to hang out in the box.
Eat the free food.
I mean, and if they're going to have, food that's natural to the Atlanta area, I'm just saying, there's going to be some barbecue, there's going to be some fried chicken, there's going to be Waffle House, like Chick-fil-A. It's going to be, I'm excited.
Definitely.
I'm excited. It's going to be good food.
The worst thing the NFL could do is tell us that we can't have a Super Bowl after noise gate. That would be the worst thing to happen. I know you hate noise gate. God, I had to use it.
Desabacle. Desabacle.
It takes so much to say.
Just stop putting gate after it. The Watergate was a hotel. The whole scandal wasn't even about water. Like, it had nothing to do with water. The Watergate scandal was about, like, stealing documents from an opposing campaign and basically shit that if it happened today, people would be like, oh, that's just normal campaign shit. But now it's like, oh, yeah, Desabacle. Or, Noisegate, Watergate. That's not what it's about. Anyway.
All right, let's get into some mailbag questions. Our first one comes from @IcySky at night. He says, "I'd love to know who you guys think will be the starter at left guard in Week 1?
I'm gonna go out of the box on this one. I'm gonna say it's Jarrett Smith. They signed him for pretty much nothing. He was on the Seahawks last year. He's a former defensive tackle. He's very nasty. He's extremely athletic for an offensive lineman. And basically the idea is he's been learning how to play offensive line the last 2 years on a practice squad. And I think with the right guys around him, he could be pretty damn good. So, and I think it's kind of like a J.R. Sweezy situation. You're going to take your lumps that first year, but after that, he's probably going to be pretty good.
You looked a little confused, Sammy, when he said Jarrett Smith. Like you were like, who? Who's that guy?
I guess I misheard the question. I'm lost right now.
Who do you think is going to be the starter at left guard Week 1?
Oh, okay. Well, I have no thoughts about that. So Scott seems like he's blamed it all for it.
Okay. I'll go with Mike Person just because that's the default starter right now. But I don't feel confident about that, so I'll probably change my mind next week. So
I was going to say, go with who you feel confident. I know you feel confident in Harlan Gunn.
I do feel confident in Harlan Gunn, but I'll say Harlan Gunn. Yeah, Harlan Gunn. All right. At B Robin asks, what's the chances of Baker playing left guard?
I'm thinking slim to none.
Okay. I'll be the oddball, and I'll say 15% chance he plays left guard.
I think you're being nice.
Probably
strange.
Yeah.
Do you remember when he played right guard those 3 snaps and Ryan got sacked on 2 of them? And then the other one was a running play, so Ryan couldn't have gotten sacked on it. But, Baker did miss his block. So, let's go out there. Let's be a body, and then let's not block anybody 3 straight plays. Matt Ryan got sacked 3 times in that game. And 2 of them were on plays that Sam Baker was in. Doesn't make sense.
All right. We have 2 questions about the point after touchdown proposals. What are you guys' thoughts on the new rule that was announced today that basically, to fill in for anybody that doesn't know, they moved the point after touchdown kicks, the PATs, to the 15-yard line. Teams can still go for a 2 from a 2-point conversion at the 2-yard line, and if the play is blocked or turnover or whatever happens, the defense can score 2 points. So, what are you guys' thoughts on the rule change?
Hell yeah. I like something different. I don't like that they moved it back that much, but at the same time, NFL kickers hit about 95% of field goals between 30 and 35 yards. And then that's not including having it centered on the 32-yard line, like they're going to. After the snap is going to be centered on the 32-yard line. So I think after a certain point, you're like, well, it's probably going to be about 98% as opposed to 99.9% it's going to go through.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Sammy. I'm sorry.
I definitely like the fact that they changed the rule for the 2-point conversion to make it more like college, where you can return it for 2 points. I think that will change some of the closer games that eventually go into overtime because those 2 points will help out. There's some great guys on defense around the league, and I feel like we're going to see a few teams actually take that back for the 2 points. As far as the extra point is concerned, moving it back, I honestly deeper than the surface, I think it's gonna help the field goal kickers out a lot because with the kick being moved back, they get to test more of the elements as far as how the wind is blowing and stuff like that. And it could potentially help them make a field goal that they need to make later on in the game.
Good point. Good point. It seems like they moved it back to a point where it's like statistically even on about your chance. Like there's varying numbers on how accurate those kicks are. I've seen as low as 91%. I've seen as high as about 95%. But it's basically about the same percentage where it's a toss-up with like 2-point conversions are converted like 47% of the time. So basically, you have a 47% chance of getting 2 points, which works out to be like statistically a 94% chance of getting 1 point. So I think it'll be interesting to see which coaches sort of embrace it. I'm expecting like Bill Belichick and Chip Kelly and maybe Bruce Arians to basically go for 2 every single time. It'll be interesting to see which coaches basically just say, "Oh, I'll just take the 1 point and leave it at that." But it at least brings some strategy to the extra points. So now that you're not, oh, they scored a touchdown, let me go get a beer, let me go to the bathroom for the extra point. You actually can watch it. You'll come back from the bathroom and be like, oh, wait, they blocked it and they returned it 2 yards. It can completely change the game. So I like the rule changes. And just to shout out to LMFCATL and Evan Birchfield for asking those questions. All right, the next question is from JD Beast. Andrew Parsons says the Falcons' O-line sucks. I'm optimistic about the line. Your thoughts?
I mean, I like Parsons, but I'm going to disagree with him on pretty much every offensive line evaluation he's ever going to make because he's not historically good at hitting on them. He doesn't like fat guys. He's more of a skill positions, pass rushers, that kind of guy. That's what he's going to focus on. He doesn't seem to focus on bigger guys, and I think the Falcons have a very good group online. I think they've got at least 4 competent starters, 4 average to above average starters, 4 above average pass blockers, which is where it matters more in the scheme, with Matthews, Schrader, Osimo, and Hawley. The big question is left guard. If they can get a left guard that's competent, that's average, they'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the big concern with the offensive line is whether or not guys can stay healthy. I think if we can get most of these guys to play the majority of the season, we're going to be fine. I think you saw last year in the second half of the season, Jake Matthews played a lot better than probably he's given credit for. I think Joe Hawley was great for the first month of the season. John Osimo, until he got hurt late in the year, was great. Was like a top 10, top 15 right guard, and Schrader in the second half of the season was a pretty good right tackle. I think if you can get those 4 guys, and as Scott said, average play from the left guard, those guys playing at their peaks, then I think the Falcons' offensive line is actually going to be pretty good. I'm not going to sit here and put it on a level with the Dallas Cowboys or anything like that, but I do think they'll be a lot better than people think. So.
I mean, it's going to be – I'd say you could call them a top 10 offensive line if they played in their peak, and if they've got a left guard that magically steps up and is competent. So, only so much you can do. Looks like Sammy's having some technical difficulties, so we'll just close this one out, you and me.
All right. Okay, next question. This sounds right up your alley, Scott, with the 44 sacks. Jack at Jagger Down asked, could Vic Beasley be Defensive Rookie of the Year, and what numbers would he need this year to win it versus others?
I think he could be. I think if he puts up 45 tackles, 12 sacks, and an interception, people are going to go, wow, where'd this kid come from? This guy's great. let's give him Defensive Rookie of the Year for those 12 sacks and that one interception, because how did that happen as a defensive end?
Yeah, I think what did Aaron Donald have last year? I can't remember. But yeah, I think for a defensive end, you're looking for double-digit sacks. That's usually the sign of a guy that's going to be in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I think with Beasley, if he's going to be in the running for that spot, then you're looking for 10 or more sacks. If he gets that, then he'll definitely be a front runner for that spot.
Although the last defensive end to win it was Julius Peppers. So that's a pretty tough standard to live up to. And he won it with, let's see, 5 fumbles, 12 sacks, and 35 tackles.
Yeah, before him, it was Javon Curse that won it, and he had 14 and a half sacks. So,
yeah. And then you could technically say Terrell Suggs was also a defensive end just by how he was used, and he had a bunch of sacks his rookie year.
yeah.
I want to say he had a dozen as well. Yeah, he had 12 sacks and 29 tackles and an interception. There you go. 12 sacks and an interception gets you Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and Merriman won it his rookie year, and he had 10 sacks. So,
yeah.
All right.
And then Aaron Donald and Sheldon Richardson won it as defensive tackles the last 2 years. And they just won it because they're defensive tackles and they're beasts. Because more NFL writers are actually watching the games instead of voting on pure, stats.
Yeah.
How does this guy impact? How does this guy attack? So I think it's very possible if Beasley does get 12 sacks and then is just ridiculous attacking the edge. Even if he doesn't get, 20 sacks, if he's in the range and he's knocking people around and he's getting pressure the way John Abraham used to, which I think he can, then I think he'll get Rookie of the Year easy.
Yeah, I can't really think of somebody else who's really going to give him a legit run for it off the top of my head. I don't think Leonard Williams is going to put up the monster numbers playing beside Richardson and Wilkerson to be it. And yeah, so basically maybe a defensive back or somebody like that. I don't know. All right.
There's many good defensive backs this year that could win.
Yeah, that's something like it'll basically be someone who comes out of nowhere, like Kevin Johnson or somebody like that, that you just didn't see it coming.
Yeah, like if Kevin Johnson gets 8 picks, or if Bud Dupree randomly gets 10 sacks, or if Shaq Thompson gets 100 tackles.
Yeah.
Those might work. But I really don't see anybody who's really a huge candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Maybe Stephon Anthony in New Orleans, but I don't see that happening. He might have the stats. He might have like 130 tackles and a sack and a pick, but that's because New Orleans is going to be playing from behind quite a bit because their defense still sucks.
Yeah.
Honesty, they do. They suck.
I'm not disputing it. Just shocked by the bluntness. That's all. But it's true. It's 100% true.
LRB's Spencer's terrible. Gallette's probably going to be in jail. So who's starting for them at that spot? Like David Hawthorne, awful. Which is why I think Stephon Anthony is going to take the spot. And then, they've got Cameron Jordan, who's good. They got John Jenkins, who's okay. And I like Hakeem Hicks. But other than those 3 guys, like 3-4, they got like 3-4 good players on that defense. And they got a whole bunch of crap. And then in the secondary, they've got a whole bunch of crap. They've got a breaking down Jarris Byrd. They've got a crappy Brandon Browner. They've got Kenny Vaccaro, who knows what the hell's going to show up what day. And then they got Keenan Lewis, who's just a loudmouth, who's easy to burn for a lot of guys with speed and athleticism. If you're a slow wide receiver, he can stop you. If you've got any sort of speed, he's done.
Yep. All right. Evan Birchfield asks, any free agents you think we should or could pick up?
No.
One guy I saw I was looking over a list of available guys, and one guy that stood out to me just because he's a good player was Chris Myers, the former center for the Texans. Obviously, he's played in his own blocking scheme the last several years and been very good as a center. I don't necessarily see the Falcons signing him as a center because of Joe Hawley, but as a sort of 1 year plug-and-play sort of left guard, maybe I would feel a lot more confident with him than Mike Person at this point. Myers, I think, is like 33 or something like that years old, so he's basically, if he's willing to play, and it seems like he is because the Seahawks sniffed around him a little bit earlier this offseason. He's just trying to get one last paycheck before he hangs it up. So I wouldn't mind if the Falcons gave that to him, but other than him, nobody really jumps out to me.
Yeah, I don't really see anybody. I was looking over the safety list, and I was like, yeah, no one. Dewan Landry can't play free. And then Bernard Pollard sucks in coverage. LaRon Landry's a shell of what he was when he came out of college. Plus, he's probably got some sort of suspension. Do I even need to say the name Thomas Deku? There's not really anybody out there when it comes to just guys who are worth signing.
One other name I will throw out because I feel it is necessary. I will be pimping this player until the end of time. Dwight Freeney, 1 year contract. Bring him in basically to teach Vic Beasley a spin move. It's all worth it. That's all I care about. That's a 15-year investment right there. All right. So at Rowdy Bruh asks, who do you hope we draft in the 2016 first round? And Mr. Mac Daddy Sr. has another 2016 draft question. He asks, I know it's really early, but do you have an option on any of the safeties in next year's draft? Reading is not my strength. So
I
Scott,
don't start watching 2016 NFL draft prospects until June. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really know any of their names except maybe Jamal Golden out of Georgia Tech. And I don't know if he's going to be a first-round pick. I think he might be a second-round pick. I like Jamal Golden. I think he'd be a great fit in Quinn's defense as a free safety. But I don't really know many 2016 guys right now. Like Josh Harvey Clemens might be a good fit if he can bust out next year and be good. But yeah, I'm not seeing, I don't start anything right now. I don't have any idea. I'm still in the process of getting the motivation up to create a watch list. That's how this time of year goes for me. I don't even have the motivation to be like, oh, 2016 is a year away. Slow your roll on the 2016 draft.
Yeah, I've basically only seen like 4 guys and a little bit of 4 guys. Hargreaves, the corner from Florida, Jalen Mills, the DB, I don't even know what his position is for LSU, Sean Oakman, and maybe I can't even think of who the other person is, but Miles Jack from UCLA. So I guess if I'm answering a question just because I know Miles Jack, Jeff Ulbrich, and we might need a middle linebacker, I'll say Miles Jack. Jalen Mills is interesting to me because he does remind me a little bit of the Honey Badger, and if he can sort of convert to safety, why not? But that's about all I can give you on 2016.
See, I think the best 2016 defensive back is Jalen Ramsey out of Florida State, but that's if he comes out. And that's just because I think he's the best defensive back in the nation. I thought he should have competed for the Focal Award last year.
I'm with Scott. Like I don't even think about 2016 until like October. So, even he's way ahead of me, and I'm not even going to be close to thinking about 2016 until the actual season starts. It'll be a day in August, and I'll be like, oh wait, college football starts like this weekend. I didn't do any homework this summer, so that'll be my 2016 process.
It's okay. I'll have my watch list up by then. I'll give you a link.
Okay. Look forward to it. All right. Same guy, Roddy Bruh, asks, how much would you pay Julio?
$100 billion.
Do it in the Dr. Evil voice.
No, I'm not going to do that. No, I would pay Julio what he's worth. And don't even worry about the cap or how it affects the cap because they've got a crap ton of cap space. They can afford to pay Julio $100 million if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I'm a believer in not paying ridiculous money to wide receivers in principle, but I make the exception for Julio because I don't want to live in a world where Julio is not a Falcon. So whatever he wants.
Exactly. I don't want to live in a world where Julio Jones is not a Falcon or where Roddy White plays for any other team but the Falcons. Roddy White for playing for anybody but the Falcons would be like Reggie Wayne or Marvin Harrison playing for any team that's not the Colts. It just doesn't seem right.
There you go.
Or like Jerry Rice putting on a helmet outside of the 49ers, which I know that he did. But I don't count those years because he was like 45 when he put his helmet on for other teams. So I don't count those years. They don't exist in me.
All right. I think that Raiders Super Bowl team would be dissed by that, but okay. Yeah, they don't exist. They did get blown out, so they practically didn't exist in that game too. So
I mean, the Raiders haven't existed since the Tuck Rule. Let's be honest here. They've been a shell of their former selves since the Tuck Rule.
Yep. Yes, they have. It's hurt my heart, but it is what it is. All right, last question again comes from at Roddy Brun. I think this is a good question to close it out. He asks, what do you have for win-loss predictions for 2015?
10-6, because Atlanta's playing a very weak schedule, and because I think they're going to be a much better team this year. Because Dan Quinn's not a moron.
Well, I'm going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm going to one-up Scott, and I'm going to say 11-5. So this will be the only time all year long, mark it, that I will be more positive about the Falcons than Scott. So, bookmark this link, share it with everybody, tag this video, whatever you got to do, because this is only happening one time this year. It's all downhill from here, folks.
And it's getting tweeted out. But yes, I mean, I'm just trying to be more realistic than I normally am. The team's going to look good. I just think they're going to lose a couple close games because it's a rookie head coach figuring out some stuff. It's a defense that is still going to feel itself out a little bit. So I think there might be a couple games that they lose that, that they have no business losing, like last year's Giants game or last year's Vikings game or last year's, Chicago Bears game where they still almost came back and won.
You're gonna keep naming games, Scott. They lost. It's not gonna end. That list is not gonna end last year.
So many games last year that they had no business losing.
They lost to a lot of bad football teams last year. But you know what they say when you lose
Steelers
the
were
bad football
so
teams.
bad, yet they won the AFC North last year. I don't know how they did. No idea how the Steelers won the AFC North last year with how bad they were. A lot of bad football was played last year.
A lot of it.
Like, they shouldn't have lost to the Browns. They shouldn't have lost to the Lions. They shouldn't have lost to Chicago. They shouldn't have lost to New York or Minnesota. There you go. There's 5 wins last year. They should have been 11-5 last year. But Mike Smith's an idiot. So, there you go.
There you go. All right, folks, that's another show for us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you were downloading this on iTunes, if this link is not updated, then you be sure to tweet at PF Central to complain to him about that, but that shouldn't be an issue any longer. You can follow me on Twitter at FalcFans. You can hit up Scott on Twitter at Scott Karasik. As usual, you can hit up the show at Falcons PFC. If you want to submit a question for us to answer on our next week's show, use the hashtag Falcons mailbag. And Scott, you got anything upcoming for Bleacher Report that you want to plug?
Yeah, I've got this article where I'm going over the athletic fits for all the Falcons defensive players in Quinn's defense. It is a ridiculously long article, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time for just how much content is on it. But I will post a link to that once it's finished. Feel free to read through it. And I'm sure Aaron is going to nitpick and argue with a couple different points on it, but
What I do.
Definitely check that out.
Okay. I will be posting my scouting reports on the Falcons rookie class probably over the next 2 weeks. So look forward to that on falconsfans.com. And then I will finally get to watching the all 22 of the last 3 games of the last season. I've been putting that off forever, so might as well make it 6 months, right? So those are things I look forward to on Falcons in the coming weeks. So thanks for checking us out, guys.